Hello and welcome to my summary of 2019, where I'm going to go through my December sales as the last month of the year, and then I'm going to have a quick look overall at all my sales through 2019 just to see how I've been getting on with everything I've done this year in my gold making journey in World of Warcraft. Now, if you followed these series before, you'll see I go through and I export all the accounting data for each month, and then I go through and pick out any of the notable sellers and notable purchases, see where I've made money, see where I've lost money, try and adapt that for the next month, look at things that I'm going to be doing ahead, and generally see what I can do to make more gold each month. So let's start with our usual profession, tailoring, one of my favourite ones. So let's go through and have a look at a few sales we've got here. We've got regular bits and pieces like black mage weave, black swashbucklers shirt, dark silk shirt, shoulders there, flying carpet, just single sales that tick through. No massive prices here, but still nice to have. You made some good sales on hexweave bags there, 6 of those for average of 1,300. Now this is going to be interesting, I think, because I've not been selling any deep sea bags because they are, even though they're the same size, they don't tend to sell for as great a profit. And I'm going to be interested to see what happens when 8.3 comes out and people can just look at whichever bags, an improvement for them, and maybe the hexweave bag sales might diminish. You never know though, it's still early days yet. And then we've got a good mix of notorious combatant stuff, same as before really. We're seeing good sort of like over 1,000 in general with sales, the braces obviously being a bit cheaper there. Some things like those mittens going for 16,000 gold is pretty incredible. But I found that the notorious gear, even though I might not have had the volume of sinister gear, it still seems to sell, and I'm really glad that I've got it as part of my gold making arsenal. Now obviously again with 8.3 coming out, we're going to change this to uncanny gear. The jury's out at the moment as to what kind of sales we're going to have yet. Time will tell. I'm sure there'll probably be a rush for it at the beginning, then maybe people get a bit disappointed that they don't sell, and then those that are persistent might get a hold of the market for a bit longer, which is what happened with notorious gear. But then I don't know what's going to happen with uncanny gear. It's going to be interesting though. And then we've got 3 blankets, about 15 satchels for a reasonable price there, woolen dress, and some waste of time achievements. Hands in there, the Windwall hood. So grand total 146,000, pretty reasonable. Now I've got very little in terms of expenses, literally just 8,900, because I've taken all the tide spray linen and all of the nylon thread, and I've moved that over to enchanting for this month. I think it's only fair, because that's where it's probably going to end up. That said, I will use the expulsum for notorious gear, so it's a bit of give and take really with the professions. I guess overall, once we look at the final summary, then we'll see whether the whole thing is profitable or not. But a good 137,000 profit, so we're off to a good start. Over to cooking. So we have not as many Bountiful Captain's Feast sales as last month. Now we have sold 6 of them for just over 1,000, so the average is a little bit down there. 29,000 in total. And we did sell a reasonable quantity of the other things like baked potato. Bear tartare seems to have a resurgence there, 120 of those for 2,000 total. And then, this always amazes me, vendor sales, wildflower selling 40 of those for 76, so that's a nice little vendor flip. Let's have a look at the expenditure. Well, actually 25,000 in expenditure. Seem to have spent a rather large amount on rubbery flank. I wonder if I've overstocked on that, because I did buy 400 of those. That's used in the baked potato and the biltong, and I've only sold 3,000 of those and 9,000 of those, so I can imagine that some of that has gone into restocking. I'll have to check my actual stock levels to see. Although the price is pretty high there, but we are in a profit of 3,800, so that's at least a relief. And then moving on to leatherworking, so I haven't really adjusted this for a long time, so we're still selling the odd coarse leather gear that for a fresh sort of 110 alt can pick up some gear to get themselves started before they then move on into the notorious gear. Drums of Fury there, 17,000 in sales, always a good seller that one. And then all the other notorious combatants gear, the mail and the leather, combining to make 107 grand total of that. And again, expenditure, only really a high amount of dredged leather there, needed obviously for the Notorious Combatants gear. Now I might again have overstocked on that, got 1,000 in terms of quantity. Maybe I've got some left over that I can use later on. So 56,000 in terms of expenditure gives me a profit of 50,000 for leatherworking. So still a reasonable profit. Not as high as it's been in the past, but I'll take that. Right, now enchanting. This has been an interesting one. I have had some sales. I have had some fairly, well, not so much disastrous, but not so great resets of the market. I have tried a couple of resets myself, and I've also been the beneficiary of a couple of resets as well. But I don't think that was in this month. That'll come in January. But we do have some large sales there of a Cord of Haste, 45 of those for an average of 1,000. That's quite a good average, that. And a Chords of Critical Strike, more like a 761, which is kind of what the enchants are going down to at the moment. Maybe another reset or two around 8.3 will help with that one. And again, Deadly Navigation, that was another one I reset. Sales there for 931 average. Then the usual levelling enchants, things like that. Machinist Brilliance does well. Force Multiplier always seems to do well. A few Tomes of Illusions. So give me a grand total of 221,000. Now I do believe I've got a large amount of expenditure here. So we do have a few resets here where I bought out cheap items like Glorious Stats and Mark of the Hidden Satyr. Now I did buy a lot of these at Chords of Critical Strike and Haste. Now the average for the Critical Strike looks to be about 731, which is not much better than the 761 average of my actual sales. So that wasn't quite as good. 32 of those sales compared to the actual 49 purchases. So that would imply I've actually still got some left over in terms of the Accords of Critical Strike. And then the Accords of Haste, I bought 27 of those and sold 45 of those. So that's a better return there. So I may still need to see if I can get a bit higher on those Accords of Critical Strike. And then a few other bits and pieces, and then my big expenditure here, Tide Spray Linen. I bought 44,000 for an average of 4 gold and 4 copper. Now that's a huge amount, and I've come into January with a really large stock of Tide Spray Linen left over, so I haven't used a large amount of this purchase up. This is me stockpiling for 8.3 because I know I'm going to need a lot of Expulsum, and this is going to be my cheapest way to get it currently. There are other ways, like if I've got a decent price on Shimmer Scale, I could maybe make some braces that way. But at the moment, Tide Spray Linen seems to be my favourite, and it's certainly available in bulk as well. So I picked it up at cheap prices whenever I can. So this is obviously a overspend here on enchanting. Looking at my profit, it's down to actually minus 93,000. Obviously a lot of that will be down to this Tide Spray Linen here. I would say if we took half of that out, we'd be about breaking even. I suspect I'm probably coming out at a slight profit if you take into account what stock I've got left of the Tide Spray Linen. So even though this is probably my biggest loss in enchanting for a long while, it's kind of like an anticipatory month ready for 8.3. So there's always ebbs and flows with the gold. Some months you have good sales, and sometimes you just need to restock on quite a lot, and this is a good example of that restocking. Now moving on to alchemy, it's been another one where I've been investing quite heavily, returning all of the profit that I have made with alchemy. I've been buying extra Zinanthid as much as I can when I've got it at a reasonable price. So alchemy's been really nice though. I've had some really good strong sales, and I'm trying to build my stock levels so that I'm making the most of the Silas proc when I do get it, so that I'm making more than I need. So at the moment, Awakening has quite a good stock in readiness for selling, and he's got a lot of all the other bits and pieces ready to go for 8.3. I think this might kick off a little bit more once the raid comes out a week later, but as long as I keep them restocked at a price that is good for me, then I usually see some really good sales throughout the week. So looking at this, we've got some good ones here. We've got Abyssal Healing Potion and the Greater Flasks. Those ones tend to have a bigger profit. 100,000 there in Greater Flask of the Undertow, 81,000 in the Endless Fathoms. So we have a grand total there in sales of 415,000. I'm expecting a lot of this to get then soaked up in my purchases, and as we can probably see, it's not as bad as I thought actually. 166,000 in Zinanthid, 7,200 bought. I don't suppose I have a lot of stock left after that, So the grand total of 345,000 on those purchases gives me only a 70,000 profit. Still a healthy profit, and I know that my stock levels from this point now are a lot stronger than they were at the beginning of December. I haven't actually got a track of that, but it's just kind of like a gut feeling, because I've been preparing for 8.3 and I've always been mindful to buy more than I need, as much as I can afford it. And then my other alchemist, El Morte, is doing the living steel conversion and has made some reasonable sales here. 33 of living steel with a good 1,300 average, so 37,000 on that. The Panther gems usually do quite well as well, so we've got 52,000 total there. And again on this one I've been buying Spirit of Harmony and Motes of Harmony whenever I can find it cheap. At the moment there, that says an average price of 162,000, and just recently I know I bought a whole load more of Spirit of Harmony, and so this average next month is going to go down even more, and I'll convert that into Ghost Iron ore, and then convert that into Ghost Iron bars, then Trillium bars, then turn that into living steel. So this is my eventual sale here once I've gone through that process. So all in all, this is at least a profit, 10,000 profit there. So adding those two together gives me a total of 80,000 for alchemy. So pretty solid for a profession. Not amazing this month, but overall the profession has been fairly reasonable. The main costs here are that big one on enchanting, so I've got some stock ready for 8.3, and the same with alchemy. My profits would be probably a little bit higher if I didn't stock up as much as I've got at the moment. So looking down at my grand total here, 179,000. So it's overall for a month, it's slightly disappointing. That's less than a token for EU players, but because I'm working ahead of myself, I've already pre-purchased all my game time in 6-month chunks. This is something I feel I can ride out, because this is the lull before 8.3 coming round. And I still haven't done all my professions. There's no inscription in here. So Samadan, I've been a bit slow in getting him started, so that's still to come. And then moving on from there, jewel crafting and blacksmithing. So there's still plenty more to do, and lots more opportunities for me to diversify in professions. So if we look at the summary for the entire year now, these are all my different sales throughout the year. Obviously we didn't get started with alchemy till May, and that took me 4 months before I even saw any profits there. And then we've got various sales here, so we're looking at a total for the year of 6.1 million gold that I've managed to bring in as profit, which sounds quite a lot. It's enough for a Brutosaur if you were paying for your game time by other means, but looking at those performers, enchanting is obviously the best one there at 2.7 million, with only a couple of months where it's gone into negative values. Previously it's been much higher than that. Tailoring just shy of 2 million, so that's a good steady performer. Did well at the beginning in January, and then has been sort of like hit and miss throughout, sort of like one good month, one not so good month, and that seems to be fairly steady. Leatherworking we just started at the beginning of the year, didn't start getting profitable till April, and then it's been fairly solid, apart from a little blip in August, giving me a total of 694,000. Cooking is one of those things that goes up and it goes down. We had a good month in April of 116,000, and then other months have either broken even or been a little bit higher, but still having a total at the end of 387,000, which is nice. So alchemy didn't get started really till September, and then we started to see some good profits there. Performing well. I imagine next year it's going to do even better. So we're up to 210,000 there. And then miscellaneous is all kind of like odds and ends really. Didn't have any expenditure at all. This month in December I pretty much discounted anything that Samadan bought. There was only a few bits and pieces. But 34,000, at least we've broken even despite our big heirloom purchase here of 140,000. So 34,000 there. So everything's been in a profit, which is good. So that total 6.1 million. In graph form, that looks like this. So this bottom line here, the 250,000, is roughly my token threshold on a monthly basis. And throughout the course of the year, we've gone below it only 3 times throughout the year. And obviously others have been much higher than that. So I've been able to afford at least enough for my game time. In fact, if you look at what I've actually purchased over the course of the year, that 6 million breaks down into, so we had the 6 million here, I've been able to pay for 1 year of subs for myself, so that takes 11 tokens because you do it in 2 6-month chunks. I've taken an average here of EU token prices of 235,000. The exact expenditure I've got for my tokens I haven't got a record for, unfortunately. So it cost me 2.5 million to sub for the year, which is all paid for with gold. So that takes me down to 3.5 million. Then I was able to use another 7 tokens to buy the Shadowlands Epic Edition when that came out, so that's another 1.6 million spent. Then I bought the Warcraft 3 Spores of War Edition, so that was another 4 tokens, so 940,000. And then when BlizzCon came out, I bought the virtual ticket, which was another 3 tokens. This is actually probably more like 3.5 tokens each. I just split it this way because it was a lot easier. So that leaves me with 227,000 after all those expenditures. So overall, my gold making adventures have self-sustained my journey through World of Warcraft and allowed me to enjoy things like the Warcraft 3 coming up, being able to invest in the new expansion coming out, and pay for the virtual tickets, so I get to enjoy everything Blizzard. So for me, I'll definitely call that a success. I was even able to buy a couple of months for my son to be able to play World of Warcraft as well. I haven't included that here because I think I used some of my spare gold from the year before to be able to purchase that. But I would say that is time well spent, because my time playing World of Warcraft, although 90% of it is gold making, that is what I find fun in the game. So for me, this is a way of funding my own fun and being able to reinvest in it. And I know that there's a lot more potential for the next year for me to make even more gold, because once I've got more professions, and obviously Shadowlands will be coming out, so that's a whole new expansion start. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens for the gold making situation then. There's lots of interesting things coming along. 8.3 is literally just around the corner with the new auction house, which is very exciting to see. So I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of sales we get at the beginning in January, and then throughout, I imagine February and March are going to be strong months, and then I suspect it will probably tail off until more and more hype comes out for Shadowlands, and then we're probably going to see another big spike in sales as everyone adapts to the new markets and the new things coming out. So overall, it's been a fantastic year for me. I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed spending time with you all through my YouTube channel and on my live streams. And now that I'm doing the Wowhead economy wrap-up every week, it's great to catch up with everyone there and share all the news and learn stuff myself about things that are coming up or things that have recently happened. So I do hope you'll enjoy the content coming through into 2020. I've got lots of things I'd like to expand on. My focus is going to be mainly on retail and on professions. I know I did a little bit of classic for at least a month or two when it came out, but for me I'm really struggling to be able to split my time between the two, because I'm like most of you, I have a job and a family and this is my hobby. So as well as making content, I also try to make time to actually play the game and enjoy the gold making process. So I think this is quite representative of what's achievable for someone with a limited amount of time and a focus on the gold making journey with whatever methods you find fun. For me, this is professions, and I look forward to expanding on those this year and seeing what kind of gold we can make throughout the rest of the year. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments below, or I can be reached on my Discord server, or you can catch me streaming live, usually every Sunday about 7 till 10 UK time PM. So there's lots of different ways you can contact me, and I'll be sharing my progress as I learn new things, and hopefully we can all have an amazing journey, whatever 2020 brings. For those that are working on their longboy, I wish you all the best in luck. I think it's certainly doable, especially if you dedicate time and energy to it and focus on your daily targets, and then your long-term goal will soon come through to fruition. So until next time, happy gold making, and I'll see you very soon.